You could give the $1 million away, but the person you will have had to become a millionaire is what's worth its weight well more than $1 million.
What's up, guys? Today we have a special guest, Rob Roswell. Rob owns a crap ton of multifamily real estate, both assets under management and personally. He's got inducted to the Hall of Fame in Robert Kiyosaki's educational program, and also got inducted into the Hall of Fame of Dave Lindahl's multifamily educational program. Dude has just been beasting over the last 20 or 30 years. Welcome to the show, bro.
Thanks, man. It's a pleasure to be here.
I'm just so stoked to have you. You've accomplished so much in your career. Including an 8-figure exit with auto repair shops. And so, I don't know where to begin. How did you find real estate investing, and what were you doing before that?
Funny story going way back to the beginning when I first got off the streets, and that's also a part of my story as well. I was living on the streets, homeless in 1999. I'm a recovered crystal meth, crack cocaine addict. And when I got sober and I got serious about sobriety, the first job that I had while I was still coming up, I would watch, and the older people that have a few gray hairs that watch this episode will remember a guy by the name of Carlton Sheets. Carlton Sheets was on infomercials 20 times a weekend, right? And I would watch his infomercials over and over again. And he had a course that he was selling. In the beginning, it was cassette tapes. It became CDs eventually. But his course for it was called How to Buy Your First Home or Investment Property with No Money Down.
Love it.
It was $500.
Okay.
Problem, didn't have $500. Yeah. Problem number 2, didn't even have a credit card. I was still coming up from being homeless at the time, right? So to even have employment and a light bill in my name was a big goal accomplished back then. Yeah. But eventually, Providian, a company called Providian, sent me a credit card application in the mail for a secured credit card. For those that don't know what that is, you're really sending them money and they give you a credit card. You're really working off of your own cash with no credit.
Just to build your credit, right?
Yeah, to build your credit, right. So and it is a great credit building strategy. It worked great for us. Yeah. So they sent me 2 applications. Both were worth $300 a piece. I saved and I saved and I saved, and I got $600 in those credit cards, and I bought that course.
Wow, okay.
And I listened to that course, Daniel, until the words came off those cassette tapes. Literally, if he got laryngitis, I could have given that course. I listened to it so many times. But the problem was, I didn't have a driver's license. I still didn't have all my teeth yet. Remember, think of a homeless crackhead, because that's what I look like, even though I wasn't homeless anymore. Since I didn't have a license, I was driving around. My means of transportation was a motorized skateboard with a seat called a Visa. That's how I drove around. That's how I got to work, how I got to 12-step meetings, and how I would go and approach sellers about selling me their property with no money down. I don't understand why I never bought a house, Daniel, but I never did buy a house. But what I learned from that was some no money down techniques that I didn't even know existed. Like we're learning nowadays is very common, subject tos and novations and all those creative ways. Nobody was teaching that.
The crazy thing is, back in the day, there was no social media, there was no internet.
Right. How do you learn this
There's
stuff?
no way to get information, right? So there's always there's the guys who were doing it, but they kind of would gatekeep it, right? They're not going to share with the public. And
right.
You got a guy like Carlton Sheets who's like, hey, let's blast it out to everybody everybody can learn it, but at the same time, it's still not a whole lot of guys are just able to actually buy the tapes and actually listen to them like you did, right?
Absolutely. So, and even when you listen to the tapes, you're like, really? People do that? So what I learned from that education, even though I never did buy a house during that time, I learned the creative techniques that bought my first auto repair shop. When the first auto repair shop became available, because that was my day job, I was the guy that told you when you dropped your car off, hey, you need brake pads, you need a water pump, you need a radiator cap. How much is it? And get approval. Well,
so that was your first job after kind of transitioning from the streets?
From the streets, yes. And so when a shop by my father's house in San Diego became available, it was an acquaintance of my dad's, and my dad told him my son would probably be interested in buying the auto repair shop. I flew out to see the operations, knew it was a gold mine, and I started negotiating with him a no money down deal, and I was successful.
So basically the same principles you learned about from Carlton Sheets on how to buy houses with no money down, you actually applied it towards buying a business, which in this case an auto repair shop.
My first 3 auto repair shops was no money down. Yeah. So the first one, the details He wanted $150,000 for the business.
Okay.
He was going to stay the landlord, and he agreed with a $50,000 down payment to carry the other $100,000. Simple interest, 8%, year and a half. My father loaned me the 50 down, and voila, we had a business.
Awesome. Congrats. I mean, so cool. Okay, so you bought your first auto repair shop using kind of like some creative strategies you learned from a real estate investing course.
Yes.
And then what happens next? You start to buy more and more.
The Lord blessed that business. That's what happened next. And the surplus from that business, Daniel, we wanted to be good stewards of God's money. We wanted to make sure that we were doing the right thing with it. And we knew from what I learned
When
from
you say
Carlton
we,
Sheets,
you mean you and your wife?
my beautiful lady Claudia,
nice.
yes, who's also my business partner, not just my partner in marriage.
Awesome.
Yes. And so we saw, I was walking through the airport one day. We were actually coming to Las Vegas, where I now live.
Okay.
It was just a weekend getaway.
Okay.
And you know how they put the very eye-catching titles of books right by where you walk by in the airports?
Okay.
I saw a title, Retire Young, Retire Rich.
Okay.
And I thought, you know what? I want to retire young, retire rich.
Great
so I
title.
bought that book.
Okay.
And I devoured it over the weekend. And I thought, whoa, now little did I know there's a series that starts with Rich Dad, Poor Dad, right? That is supposed to be book number
Robert
one.
Kiyosaki's
Yeah,
book.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So then I learned about Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Cash Flow Quadrant, and all the rest of the books. And we call it the purple pill nowadays, right? I ate the purple pill. And at the back of one of the books, it talked about how to get a hold of Robert Kiyosaki. We signed up for a free course. We knew nothing is free, paid for a $500 course, and ended up buying a series of classes from them that taught us how to buy, fix, and sell houses, how to wholesale, and we started our flipping business in San Diego.
Okay, wow. So were you still doing the auto repair at this point in time?
Yes.
So you still have and how many shops did you have at this point?
At that point, we had one.
Okay, so one auto repair shop, and then you bought Robert Kiyosaki's course.
Yep.
Read the magical Rich Dad Poor Dad, and then now you're off to the races learning how to flip houses and wholesale. What was like that?
We were flipping about 10 houses a year. We were wholesaling an additional 5. It's a smaller operation,
Okay. I mean,
but San Diego, that's
small,
some good profits.
It's not small to some people.
Right,
it's small
right.
for you now, but
right. Well, compared to some people I've talked to.
Yeah.
But, it did very well on its own, completely separate from the auto repair. Meanwhile, we found our second auto repair shop 4 years later, our next auto repair shop 4 years after that, and we scaled that operation to 5 stores in 2021. Private equity came to us and said, hey, we love your concept, we like what you're doing, and we'd like to buy your operations, and we exited with a very successful 8-figure exit.
That's a whole nother story to dive into later. But that's crazy. I mean, just the thing is, like, there's a pattern of success here, so where like you're very successful in like one venture, it kind of translates into like the real estate and other things as well, and then you start doing more and more things on the real estate space and a lot of different like avenues. But it's just kind of like there's something about you specifically that what you're doing and what you're bringing to the table that is really creating, I think, the success that you're having in these different vehicles.
I love that, and I love that you segue into that because I think it's so important that people understand the power of personal development. My goal, even back then, was to make my future self very happy with my current self. And I currently look back and I'm very, very happy at the person that I was for the decisions that I made to continue to pour into myself and my education, because I want to be the best version that I possibly can be and to offer that version of myself to the world. In the process of doing that education, motivation, inspiration, all of that, from going to events, going to continued education, what now is podcasts, YouTube videos, and events, has just continued to develop me to the next level so that I could be prepared for the things that the Lord had in store for us. Yeah,
it's amazing. I feel like it's there's a whole like journey of personal growth that you've gone through. I feel like me as an investor too. Like when I first read Rich Dad Poor Dad to where I'm now, starting with a W-2 to being an investor and entrepreneur, is like I've grown so much as a business person. But then to grow as a business person, it really requires you to grow as a person, right? So like the only way you can grow your business is if you grow as a person. It's like just your personal growth. And so I mean,
you have no idea what's coming around the corner and preparing yourself. And by the way, Congratulations to you, man, because I've watched your success and you are absolutely amazing.
Thank you. I appreciate that, man. There's so much more to go. You know, I'm like looking at like all the giants that like in front of me, and like it's inspiring though. Like, you know, like the thing is, if I didn't have guys like yourself to look up to or kind of like aspire to, like I think I would be like complacent, like, you know. But just having the fact that like we get to see what you've accomplished, it inspires me and a whole bunch of our audience to kind of do the same thing. I think. So.
Appreciate that very much. But yeah, so Jim Rohn used to say, you need to become a millionaire, not for the $1 million, but for what you could give the $1 million away. But the person you will have had to become a millionaire is what's worth its weight well more than $1 million. You've experienced that. I've experienced that, because the people that we've become to get to the level we're at, whatever that level is worth tenfold what the dollars we have in the bank is, right?
That's a great clip. That's a great nugget of wisdom. I mean, like just trying to process that right now. It's like, it's so true. I mean, it's like the way you put it is like the goal is not the $1 million. The goal is to become the person who can like create the $1 million, which is like way more valuable than the $1 million itself. You know?
Yes, absolutely. Like what you were just mentioning a moment ago. The pattern of success that's taken place is because of the knowledge and the things that we do to continue to grow. So when the next challenge comes along and you say, do I want to tackle that mountain? Because really, that's really what success is. It's a series of conquered mountains, right? So I'm at the top of this peak. Am I ready to scale the next mountain or not? Well, you need to know whether you are or not.
And you're always climbing bigger and bigger mountains, right? So once you climbed like the little mini like dirt mountain, you're like, okay, that's good. Then it goes a little bigger. You're always stretching yourself a little bit more. And then once you climb this mountain, you look back at the little dirt mountains, you're like, this is so easy. My version here, I would crush this mountain over here. So,
100%. In fact, I even put that in my book. That we will look back one day and laugh at how scared we were of those challenges of the past. And I know you're speaking from experience, and I am too. That how silly it was.
Yeah.
But just to buy that auto repair shop, let's go back where we were talking about a moment ago, where I purchased that first auto repair shop. When I purchased that shop, all the things that could be possibly against me making that decision to go forward with that deal were there. I had a great job that was making well over 6 figures back in Arizona. Wow. I had just purchased my first home. Okay. It had a prepayment penalty on it of $12,000 for one more year. That might as well have been $50,000, $100,000 back then, right? Yeah. I had to quit my job, put a renter in that house because of the prepayment penalty, surrender whatever ministries I was involved in, and then move 350 miles and roll the dice on this new business. And I put the details of this in my book, but I'll just give you a brief condensed version. This was right after Thanksgiving in 2003, and the seller wanted to close by December 31st. We had to get out there, do the evaluation, make a decision, and the key is, if I hadn't been working on myself, who in the million years would have made the decision to do that, right? That takes a little boldness.
So it was actually a lot of the pre-work that was going on during that time where you were working on yourself personally, listening to content sheets and all these other things. And I mean, just like the person you're becoming. So when the opportunity presents itself, you're ready and able to actually take advantage of it.
That's exactly right. You know, the acronym for the word luck is laboring under correct knowledge, right?
Say it again.
Luck is laboring under correct knowledge, right? So all of us should be lucky only because we're getting the knowledge and building our skills along the way. Prepare, and that's one of the chapters of my book, is you have to prepare now for what's coming. Even if you don't know what's coming exactly, you could be preparing for that and bettering yourself and taking yourself to the next level.
That's a really, really good point. I think a lot of people see they see a carrot and they're doing it because of the carrot, but really it's something, is like the work that's involved is the real carrot. And so it's so good. Like you're spending so much wisdom over here. I feel like I'm learning a whole lot just listen to what you have to say. So.
Well, I'm humbled by that. Yeah, and I'm even today at the level that I'm at, I know that God has a whole lot more in store for my life. I read a book called Halftime by Bob Buford. Okay. Halftime, phenomenal book, regardless of where you're at, what season you're at. It talks about, once a very successful multimillionaire himself. And he got to a point in his life where he resigned from what his company was, and he just started really chasing after what he thought the Lord had for his purpose. Because once we've gotten to a certain level, it's all about the purpose. We're never going to feel fulfilled until we hit the purpose that we think the Lord has for us in our lives, right?
You know, I think like it's like when you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? It's like, hey, first you need to like breathe, like oxygen. Then you just like to be able to survive, like eat, shelter, all the different things. I think a lot of times in people's lives, like they're searching for purpose, but it's so hard because like they're just trying to like feed their family and eat.
Right.
And like once you're able to kind of like just meet that need of just, okay, now I'm like financially secure, or I'm not so worried about this, it's a lot easier to pursue your purpose. And not to say that you can't pursue it earlier, because there's a ton of people who have amazing purposes without financial gain. But I'm just saying, for me personally, I feel like it was easier for me to kind of have like the pursue like, or think about purpose a lot more when you have the free space of not having to like struggle to provide for your family.
You bet. So. Absolutely. It certainly takes your focus off of what the real meaning of life is, right? For sure. I know it did for me for a while.
Yeah.
You know, and we can touch on that for just a moment. I know the goal for everybody, the word that's thrown around quite a bit is balance, right? We all want to be within balance. And I'll be honest with you, when I was building an auto repair empire as well as flipping houses, we'll call it on the side, but it was really a second business, right? I was going to church. I was at soccer games. I still wouldn't have, for my daughter, I still wouldn't call myself necessarily in balance. And the reality is, if you're going to succeed at anything really, really well, you may be out of balance for a little while. And that's okay. For me, I was lucky. I had a beautiful significant other that would remind me, hey, it's time to get back in line. Hey, you need to get your you-know-what home. It's time for dinner, right?
I mean, I think that's also like a really good point, because I think a lot of times when we, as business owners or entrepreneurs, we feel like our spouse or our kids are holding us back, because we're like, I can do so much more if I just worked harder, work longer hours, and just basically like forget about them for like a period of time to kind of focus on my quote unquote business, right? And so like, I feel like that's a mentality a lot of us kind of like naturally bend towards, because we're so like driven and focused on our goals. But the big thing is, it's good to have a wife to kind of bring you back to reality, or like say like, hey, like bring back like the important things back into the picture. And sometimes like you fight against it, right? But at the end of the day, it's like, I'm so grateful to have my wife to like, hey, honey, like, you gotta take some time. You gotta take breaks. You gotta have to like think. You can't just be thinking about your personal and like financial goals like all day long. You know?
Agreed, 100%. And there's got to be a recharge of the batteries. Got to be a recharge of the batteries. Part of that for me is just some downtime without any devices in our hands. With my wife, with my kids. My kids just came out. A lot of people don't realize this, but we are sitting 1 hour away from where you can go skiing a lot of the year on Mount Charleston. And so my kids have never been skiing before. We just flew them in, and we went on a 3-day skiing. We just came home every night, like 1 hour drive. And now those times are so. My grandson came. He had never skied before. He loved it. He picked it up really quick. Those are the moments I live for nowadays. It's because at the end of the day, the legacy we leave behind is all that really matters, right? For me, and personally, and I'm a Christian, you know that. So the seeds of Jesus that I plant in the people that are in my life, the memories with my kids and the people and the lives that I touch, right? That's really the most valuable thing and the reason why I'm here. No one's going to care how much was in your bank account, how many cars you had, how many houses you had, and where they were. No one cares about that.
I think someone made a joke about that. They're like, or maybe it was you or somebody else on a dinner, was like, yeah, so when you die and they put it on your tombstone, they're not going to say Rob Roswell, $200 million.
Right.
It's like no one puts on your tombstone, like it means nothing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And while we're on that subject, if you do leave behind a money legacy for your kids, you better be prepared to train them, or you're just going to hurt them. I mean, at the end of the day, and I know we're down a rabbit hole right now, totally different subject, but there's, I learned a long time ago that we now do monthly family meetings with my kids, all of them, and my daughters by love, right? My daughters-in-law are part of that call, because my goal is to make, because you've got a decision to make as somebody that builds wealth over time, and I know your audience is at many different levels as well. Once you build wealth, and you're talking about a generational wealth, right, which we hear that term thrown around a lot, you've got two choices. One is to spend 20 years making sure that your kids have the similar education as you so they can handle the management of that wealth. Or two, pick a number. If that number is 50 grand, 100 grand, 200 grand for each of your kids, and then donate the rest, then so be it. Whatever the number is, because and then determine how that money is going to be distributed to them, like 50 grand, and then 10 years later, 50 grand. Yeah. The reason why I say that, Daniel, is because if you just dump them with the management of your estate, assuming that you've accumulated a bunch, you're just going to hurt them.
Yeah. I mean, I think this is such a great point. I think that you make is that a lot of times when people receive things that they didn't work for or didn't like their build to kind of, or sacrifice for, is like they don't know how to manage it and they don't appreciate it.
Right.
So, I mean, it's a really good point you make that as you need to have the conversations with your family about wealth, about money management. I think, and it's so healthy the way that you lead and the way that you lead your family. I think it's like. I mean, like something goals for me to like reach like down the line, you know, as I'm like slowly starting to build and go on this journey.
Absolutely, and that's why I throw it out there, because it may be way premature for a lot of people that are listening to this.
Yeah.
But it's just something you want to plant that seed now. No one planted that seed with me. I'm thinking generational wealth, and then I think about, wow, look at all the things I've learned. Some by education, but some the hard way in the trenches, right? Yeah. What not to do when flipping a house would be a good example, right? You know what I'm talking about, right? Because any investor that tells you they've never lost money on a deal is probably not someone that you want to trust, because the reality is we've all made mistakes in the investing world.
I always hear that, like people say that all the time, and up until 2023, I've never lost money on a deal. And then I was like, so when people say that, I was like, yeah, but I think I'm never gonna lose money on a deal. That was like my mentality. And then I lost money in 2023. I was like, oh man, I broke my streak. I'm okay, but that's just like taking your lumps, right? And that's just part of the process.
Taking your lumps, and it's a learning. You didn't really lose money. We call it an expensive seminar.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Because that's real world stuff.
That's true.
I'm happy to say that even the times that it's happened, it's been minimal, and we've kept it to a minimum, right? I love that.
Yeah.
And that's the whole idea of getting education. Good quality education is the key. And getting around the right people. Chapter 7 of my book is you must understand the law of exposure. And the law of exposure is simple as this. What you surround yourself with, you shall become. That's the law of exposure. Okay. It's reliable as the law of gravity. And we've all heard you're the average of your 5 closest friends. It's even more than that. You're the average of the people you decide to get around. You think about the things we're exposing ourselves to, such as YouTube, such as podcasts, such as crime TV, such as drama, whatever on a series, Netflix and all that. You're becoming like the people you're watching, and you don't even realize it, right? So
that's so true. I feel like as I've kind of grown, like when I was younger, or like in my like earlier years, like I didn't see understand that power or that principle, I think. And I just I was like, yeah, sure. Like I don't really like, that's nice for people to say, but I don't really believe it. But as I grow, especially in entrepreneurship as an investor, I see how powerful just proximity around the right people can really change your life. And so it's crazy because I was like super anti paying for coaching like back in the day when I first started. But now I'm all about coaching, because coaching will give you like the tools and resources to learn, like, let's say, practical things. But more than that is, I just want to be in the room of the guys who are like doing cool things or living like life the right way.
Right.
So we just came from a dinner actually last night. It was like a $10,000 dinner basically, just to get in a room of guys like Tim Grover, Dan Martell, like Ryan Pineda. And so just the proximity to guys who are doing, yourself, Rob Roswell. The thing is just to be in a room of guys who are like able just accomplishing and doing things, especially the right way. It's just like I feel like honestly like it's like this subconscious thing where like I just like I'm leveling myself up, and like I don't know how, but it just is happening, like just by being in these rooms.
Absolutely, because it just expands your mind. Is what it does. And you've got the big guys like Tim Grover and Dan Martell and Ryan Pineda, but even the guys that were around that table, if you think there's 15 of us that were around that table, we're all movers and shakers, and because of the barrier to entry to be at that table, you know that it's people that are serious. So just one conversation could literally change the trajectory of your financial, spiritual future in so many different ways, right? Yeah.
Even this interview we're doing right now is because of that dinner, So it's paying off big time, at least for me, but maybe not for you so much. But thank you for being on our show.
It, man. No, I'm honored, man. I'm totally honored. Yeah.
So going back to the story, you have an auto shop, you're flipping houses on the side.
Yep.
What's the next step in your journey?
So we're flipping houses, as you mentioned at the beginning of the show. because of the success that we had, we were recognized and honored to be recognized by Robert Kiyosaki, Kim Kiyosaki, and their International Hall of Fame 2 years later.
Okay.
Which, between you and me, that just means you're doing something with the $27,000 you spent in education, right? So we don't hang our hat on that too much, but again, we were honored to be recognized for that. And at that Hall of Fame ceremony, David Lindahl, a lot of people recognize his name as one of the greatest of all time in multifamily education. He was selling his education. We purchased his education and started flipping apartment buildings. And to be honest with you, I'm going to tell him myself right now. Okay, I'm going to be fully transparent with you. You know, he's talking about 100 plexes and 200 plexes. I went from single family to 4 plexes.
Yeah.
That's as big as my mind could think at that time. I did 6 plexes. I eventually got to 12 plexes.
Dude, by using his program.
Yes,
So,
it took a long time for me to get to a 40 plex, a 70 plex, 100. Now, right now we're currently in escrow on 233 doors, right? So, but that doesn't happen overnight. It's a progression, right? Yeah, by getting around the right people, like we talked about a moment ago.
And a lot of that is mindset, right? I mean, it's like limiting beliefs. And the thing about crazy about limiting beliefs is you don't know you have them until they're broken. Yeah. So like when you took Dave Lundin's course, right? You're like, okay, like I think I can do this. Okay, like let's get a 4-plex, a 10-plex maybe at the max and stuff, but. You had a limiting belief that you could do 100 or 200 unit, but you didn't even realize you had that because that was just like the truth, and that was just like what the facts, right? And then once you start doing, to get a little bit of momentum, okay, expand. Okay, now you're doing like 200. You've got like a stupid number on the assets under management that you guys own personally. Now a 200 unit is like nothing to you, right? Just because like your mind or your personal ability and belief has just expanded so much since then.
Just a few more zeros, as they say, right? You've heard that. I've heard that. It's very true. Backing up a little bit, I love your point on limiting beliefs. I'll be transparent with you again. I was in San Diego when we got this education. You can't flip houses in San Diego. That was my limited belief. So I was reaching out to people that I knew in Arizona, where I had previously lived, where houses were much cheaper at the time. They're not the way anymore, but back then they were very cheap. And I was thinking I was going to do my flipping and wholesaling career in Arizona. And by going to Robert Kiyosaki's classes, they started introducing me to people that were killing it in San Diego market and Washington market and higher dollar Florida markets. And it opened my mind, and that's where I started my flipping. But what if I hadn't gotten around that education and removed those limiting beliefs? Yeah.
You know what was kind of like really kind of crazy is I had the exact same experience. So when I first started, I didn't have like a lot of money.
You can't flip houses in Hawaii, Daniel?
No, yeah, exactly. I was like, dude, Hawaii is like insane. Like I can't do it. So I was like, okay, but I can do it in the Midwest because like Hawaii is like $1 million houses, but like I can buy a house for like 50 grand in the Midwest. So I actually started my journey flipping out of state in like Indianapolis because I was like, hey, this is like actually doable for me. Like Daniel can do it in the Midwest. Daniel can't do it in Hawaii. You know, so eventually like I got that belief broken, but it was like definitely something that I had to like personally kind of overcome in order to achieve.
100%. And I pray that this conversation, total relatability, you in Hawaii, me in San Diego, my prayer would be someone that's listening right now would get that seed of belief removed and changed and expand their thinking so that wherever they are, doesn't matter where they are, if it's in your backyard, figure out how to do it there, or at least close enough to where you can drive. I know some communities are just, San Francisco would be a great example, but I've got friends that are flipping in San Francisco. You just got to learn, get around those people at the local real estate investment association meetups and learn how they're doing it.
Great advice, great advice. Yeah. So you guys got inducted into the Hall of Fame. Now you're with, you joined Dave Lindahl's course. What's like that? You're doing like 4 plexes, 6 plexes. What's like the
and our goal back then, was every third or fourth flip would use hard money, and then cash, keep it as a rental. Okay. Hard money. The profits from the first 3 or 4, we would keep it as a rental. So we were acquiring rentals, condos, single families, 4 plexes, 6 plexes, all along the way over that time. But then another auto repair shop became available. And I started using that same very, very creative finance. There was very little down for the next auto repair shop. And it was actually a line of credit that I used for the money down. So I called it a no money down deal. Okay. Seller financing, it was novations at its best. I mean, it was pretty cool stuff. About the second store, that was 2010. 2014, we did the third store, same thing, no money down. Meanwhile, I'm flipping houses and everything's going pretty good with that. Flipping houses, making good money, paying too much in taxes.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden we learned about depreciation, how depreciation works. We went back and ran a cost seg on all of our rentals all at once. And we were able, actually, and this is going to help somebody. I had a tax deferred bucket because I had a simple plan.
Okay.
And I converted that simple plan into a Roth, and all the taxes, because when you make that transition, you pay the taxes up front. I did not have to pay any taxes because of the cost segregation. It offset those taxes, and I was able to now, which I work out of a lot of, and our investments are out of a tax-free bucket, our 401 Roth. Yeah.
Good. I mean, like, there's a lot to unpack there. I mean, would you just like a little bit more, explain a little bit about what you just talked about?
Right. So there's two different buckets that if you're in a retirement plan, as I know you probably know, there's two different buckets. One's a tax deferred plan. And the thinking on a tax deferred plan, it's not flawed thinking. It's just you have to determine whether you'd subscribe to that thinking. And the thinking is, I'm going to kick the tax can. I'm going to put money into this.
We're talking like a 401k.
401k. I'm sorry. Tax deferred bucket, which is a 401k. And there's a simple plan. There's many versions of that, but we'll call it a 401k. And the thinking is, if I put the money before I get paid out of my check or what have you, business.
Before I pay taxes.
Before I pay taxes. So now it goes in tax deferred, meaning I can grow it within that bucket. And when I pull it out when I'm 65 or whatever, the thinking is, and this is people that work for a living's thinking, is I'm going to be retired. I'll be at a lower income bracket or tax bracket because my income will be lower when I retire. I don't know about you, but I don't ever plan on being at a lower income bracket. So that's a flawed thinking for us investors, right?
This is as a W-2 employee, right? Where you're thinking like, when I retire, I won't be making money. I'll just be pulling less because I'm not growing my wealth in any other way. So let's say for simple numbers, I make $100,000 out of my company. I pay like 30 grand in tax. I take home 70. So let's say I want to put away like, let's say 10,000 to my 401k. I would have to pay like 3 grand in taxes and keep 7. So I only have 7 if I did post tax. But if I could put that full 10 into my 401k, it's going to grow at a higher rate, and I'll pay my taxes down the road. Hopefully when I retire and like my income is like 30 grand a year or something, so like that, whatever my retirement is.
Right. So the thinking is, when I pull it out, I'll be at a lower tax bracket. But here's the other, which is a flaw for those people that don't ever plan on being at a lower tax bracket, because I don't plan on having my income going down. In fact, my income is going to be growing year over year. That's my goal, and I've achieved that goal pretty well. So the other flawed part of that is, if you were to guess, are taxes going to be going up or going down to pay for all the money that they've printed? In my opinion, taxes will probably increase.
I would agree with you on that. In the future, in the next like 20 to 40 years, taxes will probably be higher than they are today, considering the current trend of like where we're headed. I mean, you never know what's going to happen. Right? There's catastrophes, there's things that, but if you're given the current like state of everywhere we're trending, you would assume a reasonable person would say like taxes will probably be higher in the next 20 or 30 years.
Just to fund the plans we have in place, such as Social Security and a number of other things that the government, that we have as a country as obligations, it will have to. And if it does, what I thought was going to be a lower tax bracket because my income is lower, isn't really lower at all anyway. So I don't really subscribe to the tax deferred bucket. The tax free bucket means that I pay the tax on the seed, not on the crop.
Got it.
So if I take, rather than putting it in this bucket, I pay tax on it and put it over here post tax, after taxes. Now when I grow this to the crop, when I turn of age to start pulling that money out, I know what's in there is 100% mine. I don't have to wonder what's going to be mine.
So in the case that we kind of like talked about, like the 10,000 that I got from my check that I'm going to put into like my retirement plan, I pay the 3,000 and only put the 7,000 into the plan, and then let it grow or build it from there. When I retire, I keep the full amount and I'm not paying any taxes at that point in time.
Correct. Yes. And as long as I get what I call a sophistication level enough to compound that regularly. And the goal is, how many times can I compound that wealth over my lifetime, right? And so the key thing is the clock. Making good decisions, not dumb mistakes, right? And getting good advice and getting good education.
And then over that period of time, hopefully, but I also like your perspective of, I think I'm going to be making more when I'm retired, because I think as a W-2 employee, that's not something that's possible. But as an entrepreneur or business owner, it's like you're always growing. Like what you're going to be making like 20 years from now is going to be way more than what you're making currently, just because your personal and business growth combined together. And
correct.
So.
And there's two different theories there. One is we call the nest egg theory. And most people think like this: I need to build this bag of money, also called the nest egg, up to a certain level. And once it's up to a certain level, and Tony Robbins in his book Money Master the Game uses it like a triangle. And this, down the bottom of the triangle, if you can vision it, is the word time. So this is me at age 30 to age 65. This is where I retire. And the peak is the middle where I retire. And now this is the decumulation phase. So you got the accumulation phase and the decumulation phase. That's the nest egg theory. I don't subscribe to that. That means if I build this bag of money big enough, now I just have to live off of that bag of money. But what's the biggest fear with that theory? That I outlive the bag of money, right? That could be a problem. And you know what they call that? They call that a greeter vest at Walmart. Because people are afraid they're going to outlive their bag of money, right? I don't want to. I would have fun with that job, but I would do it because I want to do it, not because I have to do it.
There's a big difference there. That's so good. That's so good. Yeah.
So the key thing is not the nest egg, not building this bag of money, but building cash flowing assets that continually pay my bills month over month over month. That's what I'm talking about never having my income reduced.
I love it. That's so good. I mean, like you explained that really, really well. I feel like a lot of people who will be able to just really understand that clearly and just kind of have a slightly different perspective on just retirement and maybe like their end goals in life. So.
Absolutely, because it's a shame. No, and I'll give you another example. Do you think the people that had the nest egg theory and thought they were doing all, and really were doing all the right things, it was just a matter of timing when their nest egg that's in mutual funds got depleted by 50% in 2007, 2008, but they were going to retire in 2010? Guess what? They're wearing a greeter vest at Walmart.
It's so sad, but it's so true.
It's reality for some individuals, and that's just tough luck. Timing. It was nobody could have timed that, right? But it happened, and the reality is, I know some of those people. But if that money was not in mutual funds, but it was in cash flowing assets, maybe I would have had to ride a storm. But eventually, as you and I both know, rents came back up, values came back up. They always do. Mutual funds come back up too. But what do most people do in fear when it's depleting at 10% per month? They take it out when it's low, and they try to, they time it improperly, right?
So true.
So they take it out as a loss. That money's never replaced.
Real quick, I'm going to take a real quick break just to this. We have this thing with our camera that we got to fix, so I just have to restart this timer.
Oh man, we're flowing good. You can't stop.
Dude, I mean, that's the one downside. Like, dude, you're like crush. I mean, like it's so good, so much good stuff. And
Good. I'm glad you feel that way, brother.
No, bro, like so good stuff about I think like just retirement and just perspective and just opportunities on like, I guess like how you want to like trend towards retirement, whether you want to do it in like a stock market or mutual funds or cash flowing assets like a real estate. I think it's just like a very serious conversation you need to have with yourself or with your people around you. But the other thing is like a lot of times like who you surround yourself with. If everybody is saying mutual funds, it's very hard for you to make a decision against it as well too,
absolutely.
Right? So.
And quite honestly, if you're properly diversified and your asset allocation is proper and you've got enough assets, a portion of it should be in the 20-year horizon. But mutual funds or the stock market, and I always recommend buying the market, a mutual fund, right? A good mutual fund that covers every bit of the market. That horizon's a 20-year horizon. And so when it does this, you don't care because over time, historically, it's been that 7 to 8% gain, and only a portion of what you have should be in that, so that like those people we talked about a moment ago, you don't lose 50% of your retirement money because that's all you've got going on.
Smart,
that's right.
Very, very smart. So it's so good. Like we went on a little bunny trail over there. But going back to your story, so you guys are. I mean, like,
we were talking about my story a long time ago. That's fine.
But you just got started doing some like multifamily, a little bit of small multifamily. What's like the next part of the journey?
We decided. I sat and it segues perfectly because we sat down with some advisors.
Okay.
And the advisors look at a high level of our personal financial statement.
Okay,
And they say,
okay.
look at all these assets that you've got in San Diego. You've done really, really well for yourself. Your equity position is phenomenal because we purchased when real estate was a dirty word, quite frankly. A little bit of luck,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Laboring
yeah,
under
yeah,
correct
yeah.
knowledge, but there's real luck where the Lord blesses you. And we happen to do all this stuff in 09, 10, 11, 12. Well, we all know the market went up from there. So we had a lot of equity in these properties, but the cash flow in San Diego, so a lot of people may not know that. You're either an equity stake or a cash flow stake, right?
Yeah.
Now, some people are fooled nowadays. I'll go down just a little bit of a tangent for just a moment.
Please share.
Because of what the economy has just done post-COVID, every state's been an equity state because everything grew.
Yeah.
Partially artificially.
Yeah.
So every state, even Ohio for that matter, Tennessee has been equity states.
Yeah.
But usually under normal conditions, states like Texas, Ohio, Tennessee, you're going to buy it cheap. It's never going to really grow in equity. It's just going to be a good cash flowing asset. We're talking single family homes as an example right now. Well, San Diego is an equity state, not a cash flow state. And still that way. You just like Hawaii, right? It's an equity state.
Yeah.
So we had a lot of equity. What he pointed out to me, and this is nice, getting another set of eyes on my financial statement. He says, you try and take that equity to the grocery store and tell me how that works for you. And I started laughing, but I got his point. His point was, you need to turn that into cash flow for retirement. So what we did was we started bundling up a condo, a single family, a fourplex, and selling those and putting them into a 1031 and exchanging those into larger assets.
Got it.
Yeah. So go ahead.
Large assets as in?
And I'll give you an example. So we took a fourplex and a 12plex, and we partnered with some friends and bought half a 96plex and a 70plex of our own.
Wow. Okay.
It's just as one example.
Yeah. So
and now that's cash flowing very nicely compared to having equity that was sitting there. So, don't get me wrong, I love pounding my chest and saying how much equity I have, but take that to the grocery store, right?
Yeah.
The reality is now that's paying dividends for us. Our goal over a period of time was to not need the auto repair shop cash flow. They were cash flowing very nice, and that's what we were living off of, not the equity from these properties that we're talking about. But the goal was to have the cash flow from our assets. Oh, let me rephrase that. So when I sold my auto repair shops, Daniel, the bag of money was nice, but I didn't need, back to the nest egg theory, I didn't need the bag of money to live.
That wasn't your goal.
I'm living off of the cash flow from the assets from the moves that we made. Yes.
So there's a lot of people who have who live in let's say San Diego or Hawaii, who have a lot of equity in their houses, but they're just struggling to get by just because it's like you said, you can't take the equity to the grocery store, and so it would be nice if you could. But because of that, it's you did a really brilliant move where you transferred the equity in your single family house in a low cash flowing market into, let's say, a high cash flowing asset, maybe in a higher cash flowing market in a multifamily unit. And so I think there's a lot of people here who maybe they have the equity, but they struggle where they could actually take their assets or their large equity position here and transfer it into a large multifamily and do the exact same thing that you did. Or was it scary? Was it easy? How was somebody able to do that?
Major scary, absolutely. But it's all about, hey, you and I both know life begins outside your comfort zone. You can only do what you can do based upon the education, experience, and counsel that you get from other people. But you and I both know at the end of the day, you're the quarterback. You're going to get plays called in from your financial advisor, from your CPA, from your coach. But you and I will have to be the one that actually calls the plays.
That's the thing is ultimately it's the buck stops at you, right? So I mean you can say you're going to get this advice, but it's ultimately your decision and your responsibility to own that decision or whatever decision that you're going to make. So,
Absolutely.
So good.
Yeah, one of the mistakes that I've made I did make for many, many years is I'm a very quick mover, meaning it's ready, shoot, aim. Right?
I'm the same way,
And I do that a lot. And my CPA finally he's not just my CPA. He's also a tax strategist. He's a Christian brother. He's a friend. He finally got me in the mental headlock and said, look, you need to touch base with me before you make a move because you're exposing yourself way too much to taxes.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of people don't realize that we all know that an LLC, an entity of any kind, whether it's an S corp or C corp, doesn't really matter. It's for asset protection. We all know. But what a lot of people don't realize, it's also for tax strategy. So the way, whether you have a member managed, a manager managed LLC, whether you decide to go S corp, whether you decide to go C corp, all of that is affecting your I'm sorry, I just drew a blank. Your effective tax rate. A lot of people don't realize that. Like, I'll give you an extreme example.
Please.
I'm flipping houses in an LLC in California.
Okay.
Big no. A lot of people don't know this. Your California audience will appreciate this advice. My CPA didn't know this, and he was not my CPA very long after this. But California has something called a gross sales tax on LLCs. So if you open an LLC, it's $800. If you open an S corp, it's $800. Difference. That $800 in an S corp gets you as much sales as you can possibly do, all included with that. And I'm being extreme. Someone that knows tax in California will dispute me on that. They would be right. But just for general purposes, this $800 for an LLC buys me $800,000 or thereabouts in gross sales. Once I exceed that $800,000, now I'm paying taxes, California state taxes on the gross sales, not the net, but the gross. So
that's a big
difference, man. How long does it take to get to 800 grand in sales when you're flipping houses? 2 houses? And then like maybe one and a half. So we get to the end of the year. Now, thankfully, I was able to sign an S election in time to flip that into an S corp because now I wasn't paying that in an S corp. So that's one example of having tax knowledge, and that's what my CPA was saying. Look, you need before you make a move, it isn't just about asset protection, it's about tax strategy. So now, truth be told, fast forward years later, I'm part of a CFO program with my tax strategist. We meet 10 times a year to talk about what moves I'm making and what moves I'm about to make, and make sure that I do them intelligently.
Very, very good. I think it's just like that's a good practical example of like the right tax strategy can literally save you like thousands or tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars depending on just a slight tweak on like any election, right? Whether it's a LLC or S corp, I mean, like a slight little difference.
Sure. And if you have a member managed LLC, then you're opening yourself up for no anonymity. A manager managed LLC, you're allowed to have much more of that, depending on the state that it's formed. There's a lot of details that go along with that. But a lot of people don't realize this, that saved taxes is an income stream. And I'll say that one more time. Save taxes is an income stream. And it isn't just the $10,000 that I might save in taxes. At 8% compounded over 20 years, how much is that $10,000 I pay in taxes really costing me? It's not just costing me 10 grand, it's costing me $150,000 over 20 years.
No, that's great advice and great perspective. So you guys are 1031 into like these large multifamily units. What's like the next step in the process?
We're acquiring auto repair shops, continue to get them. I got up to number 3 was in 2014, number 4 was in 2018, number 5 was in 2020.
Okay.
And not long after I purchased the 5th one, a lot of people, and we'll talk a little bit about this, excuse me for one second. A lot of people don't realize that the multiple that you get when you sell a business is based upon the gross sales of that business. Every business is, every category of business threshold is going to be different, but in auto repair, you're going to be somewhere around, depending on how well it's run, how much of an armchair investment is, you'll be around a 3 multiple for 1 store, 2 stores.
Bring a single
shop. One or 2 stores,
And when you say multiple, it basically means like how much income the business generates. Let's say the business generates $100,000 a year net after all expenses. You would sell it for a 3x multiple would be $300,000.
$300K.
If you just had one shop.
If you have one shop, or sales less than 10 million.
Okay.
So the threshold for a higher multiple, and it goes from a 3 to a 7, 8, 9, depending on how well your operation is, how good your operation is, how well managed. And 10 million is that number. So we were scaling to get over the $10 million mark. And the last store that I purchased would have had us there pretty well, I felt. And
this is over. So 10 million in net.
Gross sales.
Okay.
Yep. So you're going for a multiple of net.
Okay.
And so the phone rings, and my phone knows who it is. This person is in my Rolodex, in my memory of my phone, but I didn't recognize the name. I go, And I answered the phone, and it was a guy that I had met at talk about getting around the right people,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
There was a guy that I had met at a multiple shop owners mastermind that I was in for a short period of time. He had 7 stores when I knew him. He scaled to 9, and he sold to private equity, and he stayed on with private equity to be their acquisitions manager.
Cool.
So he's leveraging his contacts on his phone, calling people to see if they want to sell their stores. When he told me why he was calling, I started laughing out loud because I said, dude, I'm standing in the waiting room of a store that I bought 2 weeks ago. And he said, I can work with that. 6 months later, they own my stores.
That's amazing. I mean, I just like the whole, I think what they call it like a roll up, right? Like taking, but then the genius behind like that, just like the buying multiple things and selling it at like a higher multiple, like the numbers behind that is bananas.
It is.
Like, so like quick example, right? Let's say like you have, we're using these like simple numbers because like let's say all the stores are like making like say $100,000 a year, right? And so like at a 3x multiple, the store is worth $300,000 and each store, right? So you buy 5 of them. Now, let's say 5 of them, they make, let's say, $500,000 like altogether. At a 3x multiple, that would be worth, let's say, 1.5 million, right? But because, let's say, you have enough income and you beat the threshold, now you can sell, let's say, at a 5x multiple. Now those same 5 stores are worth
3 times 5 is 5 million.
3 times 5, the 500 times
5 times 5, 2.5.
2.5 million. 1.5 to 1.5. And
yes, in your example.
So in that example, that last store that you acquired, like that puts you over the threshold, it's almost like that extra 100,000 went from 1.5 to 2.5 just from that last store. I mean,
that's exactly right.
And then just the way that like private equity and like business buying and selling works for me is just. It's like there's so much like stupid money to be made in that space.
100%. And their goal is to do the same exact thing. Even though they're paying a 7 or 8 multiple, they're going to bundle them all up, roll them up, and do a 15 multiple because they're going to have 400, 500 stores by then.
I mean, it's genius, but I mean, it's cool that you actually like were a part of like that thing, and then you actually were able to do it with like your auto repair shop.
Yeah, it was very cool. And you know, we weren't looking to sell. We were scaling. We were probably going to go to 10, 12 stores, but we looked at each other. The season was good. It was a good time for us to sell, so we made the decision to do that and stay full time in the multifamily, which is and continue to scale that, which is what we've done.
So you guys kind of, I mean, also the other thing is like, was it taking a lot of your time the stores, or was it like kind of hands off?
You know, I had a regional. The answer is 20 hours a week.
Okay.
So it's still an active investment for me personally, and everybody's going to figure out what the threshold is for them. For me, anything that's 10 hours a month or less is passive.
Okay.
2 hours a week.
Okay.
Anything that's 10 hours now, some people might say, well, what if it's 11? Okay, we'll still call it passive. But the reality is we all have to figure out what that is. So for me, 20 hours a week, very active. I did have a manager. I had an operations manager, and each store had its own manager and assistant manager. So I was involved with the marketing, the final interview for employees, and HR. I was involved in some stuff, but I was also able to disappear for 3 months, 3 weeks on a vacation and not really be missed. Yeah.
Well, so I mean, the good part about selling and exiting at that point in time was also now you have those extra 20 hours to focus on like let's say the real estate side of things that you guys were also growing.
100%. Yeah.
So you exited an 8-figure valuation. By the way, congratulations, which is amazing. And then so I'm thinking like, just out of curiosity, did you buy anything fancy or nice, or what did you like make any stupid purchases?
You know, we were ready to upgrade our motorhome at that time, so we did purchase a new motorhome at that time. Yeah,
that was and that's it. No jewelry, no cars, no.
That's pretty much it, man. Yeah.
Kudos to you.
You know, the Lord has blessed us along the way. I love material stuff. Don't get me wrong. I also keep its value in its proper place. For those people that haven't figured this out yet, I know you likely have. Cars get stale in our mind mentally, no matter how nice they are. No, and I'm not into that. I have cars. I have a number of cars, the cars that I love. But I also keep them, as well as houses. I love that stuff. But I keep them in their proper place because those things get old. What really matters is the people I fill that house with, the places I drive that car to, and with the people that I do it with. You know that just as well as I do. We keep things in the perspective.
I try. I mean, like sometimes I get stupid too. So I make bad decisions every so often. So
of course, the key thing is, can we afford them? Right? And bounce it off a friend. Bounce it off a friend.
Great advice. So you guys so exited this 8-figure exit, and then like you're focusing on multifamily now. Is that kind of like the path.
That's what we're doing. So we do asset management of our own portfolio. We are slowly but surely engaging third party to do that. But asset management, for those people that don't know, for every property that we have, it's managed long distance with an on-site manager, a management company local to the area. They hire the employees, they run the operations, and they send you dashboards. We call it an MMR, a Monday morning report. And we get those every single Monday. And on Tuesdays, we do a call with them and go over the key performance indicators such as occupancy, collections, evictions, maintenance calls, because for those that don't know, if you're slow on maintenance calls, you're going to lose clients. You're going to lose people going to move out if you're not taking care of their needs.
That makes sense.
So point to all that is we oversee them with those Zoom calls weekly. And our goal is we have an assistant that has sat in on those calls for almost 2 years now. She's pretty much taken that baton from us. We're still involved. We still have to review the P&Ls. We have a VA that does that. We've shown them how to do that. And our goal is to little by little make it as passive as possible, back to that 2 hours per week, 10 hours a month.
Awesome. So I mean, like your current trajectory, like it's there. Multifamily is kind of your focus now. Do you have anything else that you're working on, or that you're that you do?
Well, truth be told, and for your viewers that don't already know this, I wrote a book detailing our journey from homeless to extraordinary success and happiness. It's called Addicted to Life.
I love
and
it.
you can get that.
Shirt,
you can get that at addictedtolifebook.com or my name, Rob, ROWSELL, Rowsell.com. And you can actually, I give away the audio version. I give away the PDF version. All you got to do is trade your email for that. If you want a signed autograph copy, it's $20 plus shipping, so it's about $25. But from that book, the principles, the 8-step building block, life-changing thing for us, we have a community, and it's called our Inner Circle community. And it's honestly, it's a pet passion of mine. It's not something I'm looking to become a zillionaire out of. It's very inexpensive. It's $397 a month. We meet monthly. It gives people access to me for 911 to guide them in different directions on different topics. But it's more than just multifamily and wealth and business. It's also our personal development. It's our health, because without that, nothing matters. It's our walk with the Lord, because without that, nothing matters. It's also our contribution back to the community that has served us and treated us so well. And while we're talking about contribution, we just got back this past 2 weekends, last weekend from Mexico, because I went down there with my church down to Tijuana. We built a house. 70 men built actually 5 houses. We go on different job sites. And while I was there, Daniel, the Lord just touched my heart and said, you know what, Rob, you need to use your influence and your contacts from all around the country, and you need to bring crews down here 3 times a year. Well, 2023, I failed a little bit. I did twice. We built 5 homes and 4 homes. We just got back, did our first one for this year. We have 3 scheduled for this year. We just got back. We built 4 homes with 50 people. And I got to tell you, that is probably the most fulfilling thing that I'm doing today, is just again, being the hands and feet of Christ.
I love it. I get like goosebumps like listening to the story. Like it's that's awesome, so good. I mean, just like the give back. I think that at a certain point when you have like the success, right? Like you're having like so much monetary and financial success. It's like you really it's like you don't really need more money, but then like the inner circle that you guys are created and you're doing is like people can be a part, and you can still pour and coach and kind of like help other people along their journey. I think it's good that you guys don't make it free, because anything that's free, like nobody appreciates, But at the same time, it's like the $397 is like it's dirt cheap too. So I mean, like,
well, you pay a lot of money for coaching, like I do, So I know compared to the things I'm paying for, it's very inexpensive. But I want it to be that way. It's real estate investors, it's business owners, it's W-2 employees that are entrepreneurial, that want to expand to the next level, and everybody at different seasons, man. So it's a perfect fit for just about anybody.
What's kind of like what's the perfect avatar for someone to join like your program?
Somebody that's looking to take like we talked about the importance of personal development, continuing to make our best version of ourselves. So that's generally going to be somebody that's either already thinking like you and I think, like outside of the W-2, B, somebody that's flipping houses, somebody that's doing multifamily that wants to take it to the next level. somebody that's really, honestly, somebody that's single. This is probably not the right way to say it, but it's what's coming to mind. Single-minded, like one avenue that's feeling unfulfilled in other areas, right? Because you and I both know, and I'll just verbalize it. If I'm a multi-millionaire, have $100 million in the bank in assets, and I'm 100 pounds overweight, is that really successful? It's really not, right? If my kids don't know who I am, excuse me, and my wife doesn't know who I am, or I'm divorced because of the success, is that really successful?
Yeah.
It's all about relationships. It's all about our walk with the Lord, our health. It's all those things. So it's the avatar is somebody that is feeling unfulfilled, that wants to expand in any one of those areas. Yeah.
That's so good. I mean, but you're really looking for somebody who's looking to expand past the W-2, maybe like an entrepreneurial kind of thing, and then they're trying to figure this whole thing out. I mean, there's a lot of like little nuances and things that you're bumps along the road that like you've experienced and you figured out, and so you can kind of help guide them or lead them on the road and help to avoid some of the potholes that they're going to be facing as they kind of like do this journey. So.
100%. Yeah, chapter 1 of my book is titled "You Got to Be Done." Right.
Okay.
And for me, the example that I use is the day that I decided not to use drugs and alcohol anymore. I was done, right? So, but that transfers perfectly over to somebody that's living a life of complacency, right? You've got to be done with that life. You got to be done with saying, I'm good enough. I want to be the best version. We're all put on this earth for a purpose. You can touch people that I can't. You'll have missions that you can perform that I can't, and vice versa. Right? So the goal is discovering what that mission is and beginning that process.
Yeah, and I love it too, is because all of us have a different burning desire that's important to us. And so like for you right now this season is like building homes for people in Mexico. And so like you're able to put all those resources. Somebody else might be like, hey, I want to help like underprivileged kids, or let's say I want to help, let's say like poverty in, let's say Africa or wherever it is, or maybe in my hometown. So it's good that like we like, but as a entrepreneur, as like a multiplier, you want to be able to create other people who can like build wealth or build influence and things where they can go for their passion and multiply their give back to the world as 100%. Well too. So.
And people that experience the home build realize very quickly that the person that gets blessed the most is the participants, right? Because you can't go down there and see the level of gratitude that these people have for what you and I take so much for granted. I mean, I know you're a grateful guy for the success that you've had. I've had conversations with you. And many people that are listening to this episode very likely feel like they have an attitude of gratitude. But when you go down and you see with the means that these people are living with and the gratitude that they have for even the level that they're at, you come back a changed person. It's amazing, brother.
So good. Yeah. I mean, like, so, like, maybe just one big takeaway is somebody who's, like, trying to figure out their way. Maybe they are just kind of starting their journey of investing, or let's say like entrepreneurship. Like, what's one piece of advice you would give that person?
Honestly, get education. Choose a niche, whatever that might be. And there's so many, as you and I both know, there's so many different niches, even within the realm of real estate. But maybe it's not real estate that you want to do. Maybe you want to do code for computer programs. Maybe you want to maybe you're an artist, or maybe you're doing composing songs. Pick what it is. Get education. If you want to be an author, there's so much free, and free sometimes you get what you pay for, right? So you do have to filter that as well. But there's a lot of available stuff for you to watch and at least become familiar. Pick a lane, whatever that lane is, and become the best that there possibly could be at that lane. I will tell you, I don't want to drive a shuttle bus to take people from here to their parking lot. But if that's what I chose to do, I would be the best shuttle bus driver there ever was, right? So pick a lane and become very good at it. Get the education and begin the journey.
I love it. Well, if people want to reach out more or like find out about your coaching program or your book, where can they reach out to you?
Again, it's my name, robroswell.com.
Okay.
Addictedtolifebook.com. And then really follow me on Instagram. And I'm very, very simple. It's my name, Rob Roswell. So,
okay. Well, thanks so much. We'll have some like notes about your coaching program as well in the show notes. But thanks so much for coming on, Rob.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, man. It's an honor. God bless you, brother.
Thank you.
Thank you.